What's going on, everybody? Welcome back here to another weather forecast, my friends. My name is Andrew Heichman. Now, for today, we got ourselves a bit of an update here on the tropics. We got ourselves a bit of an increase in activity here, not only in the tropics, but also in severe weather land, which we'll be getting into in a moment. Tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds does seem to be a bit of a concern. Now, guys, if you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. It's good to have you guys here. Once again, I hope everyone is having a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. So, since yesterday's update, we had an overall 60% chance of tropical formation. The Hurricane Center has actually increased those odds now to a 70% chance of overall tropical formation here. So basically, within the next 7 days, we have a 70% chance of the system becoming a depression or a tropical storm. And even throughout the next 48 hours to the next 2 days, we have a 20% chance, which is relatively unlikely to do anything in the next few days because the system's actually going to be combating a little bit of dry air for the most part. But later on in its development here, kind of from mid to later next week, I believe we're going to really start to see some more activity come out of the system here. You know, we'll have to see where the future takes us here. But anyways, so looking at the satellite now, there's really not a whole lot to it. It's just a bunch of disorganized showers and thunderstorms going on here. Just really not a whole lot of anything crazy going on right now. But if we look closely, you can kind of see how we do have maybe a little bit of organization trying to happen here, but it's just, you know, once again, still very, very much disorganized and has a lot of work to do before it wants to do anything, which, you know, once again, the overall formation in the next 48 hours is only at a 20% chance, which is not really expected anytime soon. All right, everybody, so now we're hopping our way over here into the models. First of all, we're going to take a look at some of these ensembles here, starting off with the ECENS here. Now, we're not going to go super far down in time because, you know, anything above 180 hours, which is, you know, just typically a little bit too far, becomes a little bit crazy. But anyway, so within the first 180 hours out here from the ECENS, you can see that we have ourselves much of the system here just remaining just north of the Antilles, you know, north of the Virgin Islands here does seem very, very likely with this in particular set of members here. Now, if we take a look at the GEFS here, we'll go ahead and go to, once again, 180 hours out here, you know, within reasonable time frame. Some of those members from this in particular model here, which the GEFS is a part of the GFS model, we do actually have ourselves a little bit of members even a little bit further to the south here overall. So, but the majority of those members is relatively on track here with what the ECENS was also suggesting here overall. So, you know, there is a bit of support with that in particular track. Now, then we hop over here to the GDM FNV3. You can actually see that, you know, we're talking relatively similar track here. And also even this model picking up on maybe even a secondary wave, another tropical wave potential, you know, kind of popping off here right around the 20th or so from what it looks like. So 20th, 21st or so. So we'll have to see if that materializes. I know that there has been a few models that's been kind of bringing that up here for the last few days, so we'll just see if that ends up materializing here. And then lastly, we have the GDM GENC model, which, you know, is pretty much on track as well, you know, keeping everything within, you know, reasonable track here. You know, there's really not a whole lot of differential going on, but, you know, remember, this is still fairly early, and there is absolutely a lot of things that can indeed change between now and a few days from now, so we'll definitely have to continue to watch this here overall. So one thing I do want to mention here is with the latest run of the GFS model here, you know, with this system, you can kind of see where it's at. So we're looking at the moisture throughout the atmosphere with the bluish green representing a lot of water vapor, a lot of moisture, and the brown kind of representing a lot of drier air overall. So, you know, in the system's development here, you know, the reason why we're not really expecting the system to really kick off here is because a lot of dry air infiltration, a lot of dry air will kind of get sucked into the storm here, which will kind of prevent the system from, you know, deep convecting, preventing a lot of those thunderstorms from firing, you know, due to the lack of moisture, which would allow for the system to not really strengthen as quickly or not at all. So that is why we're not expecting anything, you know, to really kick off, you know, anytime soon. But like I mentioned, as we approach our way to kind of mid to later next week, like the GFS suggests here, you know, obviously we should never just go off of one model, but the American GFS does eventually have the system getting a hold of all that moisture and actually picking up some strength, in which that is something that we'll seriously need to watch out for. So basically in the short term, there's a lot of dry air that's preventing the system from really kicking up, but in the long term, there is signals that is showing that there will be enough enough moisture, the system will finally be in an environment where it can absolutely pick up in some strength. So that is definitely something that I really did want to mention here. Now, another thing is looking at the wind shear, which, the amount of winds throughout the atmosphere at different elevations here is very important for tropical development. It really does not seem like wind shear is going to be too much of an issue. I mean, for the next couple of days, we could have a little bit of strong wind shear with the system on the northern side. Once again, not really expecting any rapid development here, but later on, going down into the mid to later portion of next week, it seems like there's really not going to be as much of a wind shear impact here, at least for that time frame. So wind shear doesn't seem to be a super big concern for the system, at least as of now. That could absolutely change in the extended range, but right now the main concern for the system is the amount of moisture and the availability of moisture here overall, within the system here. So that is what we're looking out there for. Now, there are other models like the Euro also pick up on this as well here, keeping relatively similar, maybe a little bit of wind shear up north. We do have a pretty decent jet just north of the Cabo Verde here within the next, 3 days or so. Actually already starting to kick off here at this current time. That'll be there for a little bit, but it seems like that system eventually will kind of pull out of that strong wind shear, which would allow for the system to, have that at least not against it. So, we could see some more activity in the future. Anyways, my friends, well, I just want to go ahead and do that little quick update here with you guys. So we'll be live again later on tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern or 7 Central. So I hope to see you guys then. Once again, if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button, leaving a like. It'll be greatly appreciated. And alright, my friends, well, we'll catch you guys later on. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.